Hello and welcome back to the channel, and I just watched Mickey 17.
That's when everything changed. Multiple.
So Mickey 17 is the latest film from Parasite director Bong Joon-ho. The film stars Robert Pattinson as Mickey 17, who plays an expendable, a disposable crew member on a space mission selected for dangerous tasks because he can be renewed if his body dies, but his memory is largely intact. With one regeneration though, things go very wrong. That is pretty much the basic synopsis of the movie. If I went a bit farther, it would go into spoiler territory, and believe me, you want to go into this movie as blind as possible because some crazy shit happens, or at least a lot of interesting things happen in this movie. I think the biggest questions gonna come up with this movie, especially for people that watch Bong Joon-ho's last movie, Parasite, are going to ask the same question. How does this compare to Parasite? Because Parasite was incredible. That film was a masterpiece. I mean, it was my favorite movie that year. So definitely, when I came into this, I had a bit of expectations, especially because the bar is pretty much up here. I'll get into that in a bit because I know you want the answer right now, but I want to talk about the movie a little bit more before I give you my full answer on if it's as good or even better than Parasite. First of all, I want to talk about the performances, because the film has a lot of great people in it, and everybody does a great job. Even Mark Ruffalo, who's pretty damn silly in this movie. I mean, the character that he plays is pretty much Trump. Like, he literally just plays a very cartoonish version of Trump. Not so cartoonish when you think about it, how he's been acting as of late, but I mean, it's as cartoonish as you can get with such a vile man. I mean, he even does little dances like this, like Trump likes to do every time he's in public. It's fucking ridiculous, but it works. Like, it works for the character that Mark Ruffalo is playing. But of course, I'm here to talk about Mark Ruffalo. What about Robert Pattinson? I mean, of course, he's amazing. Like, he's been in a lot of great things. I mean, the last couple of years, Robert Pattinson has really made a name for himself. And it is no difference here. And honestly, I might even say that this is one of my favorite performances of his, because he's having to play two different versions of himself. Yes, in this movie, he not only plays one Mickey, I mean, Mickey 17, he also has to play Mickey 18, which is another clone of himself in the movie that has a completely different personality to him, or Mickey 17. Like, Mickey 17 and Mickey 18 have completely different personalities, or at least different attitudes to a certain extent, and that's an interesting dynamic. By the end, you'll be questioning, wow, the way they had to do this must have been fucking hell. Also, Robert Pattinson does a really silly voice in this movie. I mean, he almost does an Adam Sandler-esque voice that could be annoying if he played it a little bit too on the nose.
Nothing was working out, and I wanted to get off of Earth. They made me work my ass off, giving me one shitty mission after another.
But I think he does a great job enough with this silly-ass voice that by the end, I was not annoyed by it, I was not bothered by it. In fact, by the end, I was just like, yeah, that's just how Robert Pattinson talks. But if you actually hear that man talk, like, in real life, outside the movie, he talks so sophisticated and so eloquently. And you hear him in this movie, and it's like, man, what? Of course, everybody else in the cast is great. I mean, everybody gives her 100%. Again, my one main criticism about this movie might be the fact that the villains, because yes, this movie does have villains, believe it or not. I mean, if I already talked about Mark Ruffalo, he's a villain in the movie, okay? But his character specifically can be a little bit too cartoonish, like a little bit too on the nose evil, that it goes again into like caricature like territory. Again, I didn't mind it because Mark Ruffalo plays it so well that I wasn't bothered by it, but it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I get it. You see, like, I get what you're trying to do, and it's getting a little bit annoying, but not so annoying that I'm bothered by it. But it's still one of those things that I was like, man, if you could just dial it back just a little bit. The film also looks pretty damn good, and I'm not only talking about the cinematography and the directing, I'm also talking about the VFX, because yes, this movie's more sci-fi oriented. It's not as grounded as something like Parasite, or even grounded in the sense of something like Snowpiercer, which was also directed by Bong Joon-ho. It's more in the middle, where it has a feeling of groundness, but the film is also more VFX oriented because of the time frame of the film. The movie is also very well written, although I will say that because the movie has a few parallels to our world in the sense of politically. I mean, there's a lot of things in this movie where I'm like, I recognize that. And I mean, it's funny. Like, I'm not gonna deny it, it's funny. But it's also kind of like uncomfortable because we are living in a time, politically at least, that is kind of scary, that's kind of bleak. So when I see it in movies, I'm like, god damn, the fact that we are like close to this is like scary. The film has a lot of commentary on a lot of things, but specifically the whole thing with Mickey and all this cloning shit. There's a whole conversation about this and how ethical it is. Is it even ethical at all? It's, I don't know, like there's a conversation here that's interesting as well, that I feel like we've also seen in our world, at least in our time, that is like, goddamn, this is so familiar to stuff that's been happening in real world science to a certain extent, right? That's interesting as well, but it's also, again, uncomfortable for the fact that we are kind of living in this. And I'm gonna talk about how this movie is very funny, and yes, the movie is very, very funny. I mean, I was surprised of how funny the film actually was, because when I was watching the trailers, I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be this funny. I think this is just a marketing thing. But no, the movie's just legitimately really funny. I mean, there were a lot of moments watching this where I was genuinely laughing. But at the same time, for a movie that's also very funny, it's also very tragic. Like, the Mickey character, he is a tragic character. Specifically with the fact that he has to die every day. Like, his job, his main job at this space facility is that he just kind of gets sent to things for him to die, or experiment with him with viruses and all kinds of horrible shit just to come up with cures or with other things that could help the colony. It's one of those things where it's like, I understand that they're doing this to help these people, but at the same time, it's at the expense of making somebody suffer. Yes, this person, yes, will die, and yes, they will come back as a clone. He'll still have the memories and all this stuff, but it's still shitty. And even Mickey himself says, like, throughout the movie, that people constantly ask him, like, just assholes, always constantly berating him, like, how does it feel to die, man? What does it actually feel like? It's never something out of concern for Mickey. It's always just as a fun little thing, you know? And it was one of those things where I was like, man, I really feel bad for this character, especially for the fact that he even mentions that even though it happens every day, he dies every day, it still scares him. That still scares him. Even though he comes back every day, it is still a very painful process. So by that, you already can have an attachment to this character, because even though, yes, he kind of dies and then comes back later after a couple of hours, it's still not fun. Like, it's still not cool to just be sent to die, or to be experimented on shit that is going to kill you or harm you, and then just kind of move on with it. You know, it's obviously not. There's something about it that really, I enjoy about that. I really enjoy that the character feels things, even though it's kind of like a routine. The character's still feeling pain and fear from these events. I like that. I like that the movie doesn't shy from that. There's also these little creatures in this ice planet that are really cute. Like, for as interesting as the design is, they are kind of adorable once you kind of get a good look at them. I'm like, no, these are just kind of like big old isopods, you know? But they're like very, very cute isopods. Like, that's the best way I can describe them. And what they do with those creatures is kind of unexpected. Like, honestly, when I kind of saw where they were going with these, I was like, well, that's something. I wasn't not expecting that, but I welcome it. It's not one of those things where I'm like, I was not expecting that, and this is bullshit. No, it was one of those things where it was like, I did not expect this, but I really enjoyed this. If I had one other complaint, it's another one that depends on who you are, that will be a deal breaker for, is that the movie is a little bit too long. I mean, there were a few points in the movie where I was like, maybe you can like cut some of this, at least in the middle. You can maybe trim some of it down, not necessarily cut, but maybe just condense it a little bit more, because there are a few scenes, or at least a few moments in the middle of the movie where I was like, this is not bad by any means, but I do feel like it's taking some time from the actual stuff that I want to see. That's like the only other complaint that I have about the movie. Other than that, I think the movie's pretty damn great. But now for the big question. Does this movie live up to the hype? Is this movie better or as good as Parasite? Well, I'll say this, and some people might be disappointed by me saying this, but I don't think this is any better than Parasite. And I don't even think it's as good as Parasite. And I almost feel bad trying to compare these two movies because they are absolutely different from each other. There's nothing even remotely close to similar to these two. But I'll say this movie does have more similarities with Snowpiercer. And if I'm being completely honest, I think this movie is better than Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer is good, okay? I really like Snowpiercer. But I feel like that movie has more moments where I'm like, okay, I feel like we're just kind of spinning on wheels. The pacing is probably one of my biggest problems in Snowpiercer. And even some of the performances, I'm like, it's not terrible, but some of these performances are just not incredible. They're good at best, but they're not like wowing me. This movie is like the complete opposite. This movie doesn't have terrible pacing. Again, it has a few moments in the middle where it kind of slows down a bit, but when it moves on from that, it picks right up. Like, it zooms through shit. And I feel like the characters are also just way more engaging in Mickey 17 than they are in Snowpiercer. And Snowpiercer, again, they're good, but I do feel like Mickey 17 not only has the better writing, the better pacing, but also the better characters. It also has the better story, so there's also that. So I would say that Mickey 17 is better than Snowpiercer, but it's not better, and it's not equal to Parasite. Unfortunate because, again, Parasite was amazing. That movie is a masterpiece. So I am a little bit disappointed that this was not at the same level as Parasite, but at the same time, am I complaining about what I got with Mickey 17? Absolutely not. I mean, I had a great time with Mickey 17, and I would not be mad to revisit this movie anytime. I would gladly watch this movie again. So my final rating for Mickey 17 is going to be an 8 out of 10. I know some people are going to be very disappointed by that, but people, you gotta understand that you're comparing oranges to apples, okay? Parasite is like up here. Mickey 17 is like up here, which isn't bad. Okay, it's not bad. You also have to understand that these are two completely different movies. Comparing them is stupid. But yes, comparing them quality-wise, I could understand how it could be a bit slightly disappointing. But are you going to hate watching this movie? Absolutely not. I think most people will watch this movie and enjoy it. At least, I hope so, because it is legitimately a great movie. So, I don't know, I think it's a great movie, and being a great movie is not bad. Just because it's not a masterpiece doesn't mean it's a fucking piece of shit.
Are you afraid to die? This time I wasn't scared.
But thank you so much for watching. What do you think of Mickey 17? Did you love the film? Did you hate it? Or just kind of in the middle? Let me know down in the comments. I really want to know what you guys think about it. And like always, good day, good night, and stay safe.